just got done watering my plants. It's such a crazy thing to look at when you watch your plants. So I put like a little bit of water in each one, and there's more brown leaves. Slowly getting more brown leaves every time I do a podcast. I haven't done one for a while. It's been like 3 or 4 days. I've just been getting things done, right, man? Been buying new coffee mugs. I had it. So there's a top, obviously, and then the handle's right here. Now I had it like this for my left hand, so I could drink out of my left hand and still use my phone. But now, so I have it on the left side of my table, but it's really awkward for me to drink coffee with my left hand. But if I flip the thing around, gotta take it out, put it back in. Now I have it in my right hand, which is a lot more easier for me to put up to my mouth and drink coffee out of. But got this new iron. It's an Elo iron coffee mug, and it's really nice. And it looks really good. It's really nice and clean, and it's something that I really enjoy drinking coffee from. And then I have my water right next to me. You guys can't see, but I just water my plants, and dude, that is such a look. Okay, so I don't know. I don't want to get a misconception out there that I am somebody who indulges in a lot of psychedelics. I don't. Not that I have anything against that. I just don't. And because I think a lot of people, I can come off like when I talk, I'm just scattered brain all the time, that it can come off sometimes like I'm under the influence, or I've been under the influence of certain psychedelics, but I haven't. I would never not do it. Just haven't really had a need to, so I haven't. Because I think people sometimes will watch my podcast and be like, "What is he talking about now?" But that's just kind of how I get through the day. Is I'm always going, Michael, what are you talking about now? Because that's just where my brain goes all the time. In my book, well, actually, so the water, it's so insane to think about. Like, plants only need, right, a few things and to survive. And it's like humans only need a few things to survive. That's why I love plants, because they need food, water, protection. Humans need food, water, protection. That's all we need. Everything else outside of that is just extra fat. Like, just cut it off, and it's like it doesn't help us at all to get through like the day. So it's so cool to watch just putting water into a pot, especially cacti, because cacti don't need water all the time. At least as far as I know. I'm not a botanist, but I do have a few cacti, and I got cacti because I think they're the easiest ones to keep alive. But they don't need water every day. So when I give water to them, it just sucks it up, and you can literally, like, if I poured water on a table, it would just stay there, and it would eventually evaporate, but it would just stay there, or it would just slowly fall off the table. But to watch this plant that for all day, you got to think about it for it to be alive. Like, it doesn't look alive, but it is alive. It just sits here all day, and then I pour water on top of it, on a surface, moisture, or like soil, and it just soaks it up. It's so insane to watch. It's like this living thing is here all the time, and it's living, and it's giving out, like it's taking in CO2 and releasing oxygen all day long, and it's like literally humans doing the same thing. And it's such a more basic way of life. And I've always, like, plants to me have always been so fascinating. My grandmother was a botanist, so I grew up around plants. I remember going to her house when I was younger in Beltsville, and I was always so fascinated with all the vegetables and fruits, and then just regular plants, because I understood, like, the point of I understand the point of vegetables and fruits, because that is for food, right? That's what you eat, man. That's how you survive. That's how you get on to the next day. And it's like, grow your own stuff, because if you can, because it's, you control what goes on it. Less pesticides, it's cleaner. I mean, what's in it. But the plants, I just didn't understand for the longest time. I was like, what is the point of having a sunflower? What is the point of having just, daffodils, roses, whatever the plant was? Why? And it's not about the production. It's not about the survival. It's not about intaking the cucumbers off the cucumber plants, or eating the tomatoes off the tomato plants, or eating the pumpkins off the pumpkin plants. Like, it's not about that all the time. If it was just about that, we would be such a happy world, right? Plants would, if it was just about that, plants would be doing stuff. And they might be, but I can't really tell. They might be talking to each other. I've heard people talk about that, like certain plants in the Amazon. If there's danger around, apparently they like shoot off a smell that only the other plant can hear, and it does something. But I just googled it. Do plants talk to each other? Plants can communicate with each other just like animals. Plants produce all kinds of chemical signals in response to their environments, and they can share those signals with each other, especially when they're under attack. These signals take two routes: through the air, through the soil. Yeah, so there's like two highway systems, right? There's two highway systems for plants to communicate with each other, and it's like under the ground. So right now they can't do it on the ground, but they can do it through the air, the airways. And it's like humans have just an overabundant amount of food everywhere, and water everywhere. I mean, not everywhere. There's some places that can have water, like Flint, Michigan, at least for this country. But outside the United States, a lot of the world doesn't have water. But once you have food and water and protection, you have everything you need to just go to bed and wake up the next day, right? And then there's different things to allow us to live longer, like medication in your health. And it's like, how much of that is actually necessary? Is it just for quality of life? And then you come to the question, is quality of life even needed? And it's like, yes, it is, right? It is, because I'm a living thing, and people I know are living creatures, and they have feelings and they feel certain things, and there's sometimes during the day where they're sad, or they're happy, or they're depressed, or they're angry, or they're jealous, or they resent somebody, or they hold a grudge. But the quality of life, does it really have to be good? Like, if we look at it just from a biological level, the need is just to pass on your genes, and then to your child, and you find a partner that you think can love your child as much as your child. Like, and then if they match for all different reasons, the way they smell, the way they look, the structure of their physical body, can they protect my child? That's a big thing people don't like to talk about. Like, the physical size of your spouse means a lot. If you're a guy and it's people don't want to believe it, but symmetry is so important. For a guy looking at a woman, it's like, and it comes off super dirty, and it's like, oh, you pig. But it's like, no, I mean, if you are a, I guess, quote unquote, curvy woman, if you have a larger bottom half of your body, if you know what I mean, it means you have a stronger base to push out a child. Like, you have more mass there. It's a stronger structure. And up top, it's like, if you have bigger breasts, it's like, oh, you are more capable to produce nutrients for the child. So it's like, that is like the connection a guy will have to a girl when it comes to reproduction. And then the same way, the other way, it's like, for a girl looking at a guy, it's like, you want a relatively large structure, muscular, lesser body mass, not like super shredded, obviously, but you want just a large man, a large, healthy man, a man who can provide, and not just provide, but also pass down genetics that will keep on going. Like, that's what humans do. We pass on genes and genetics, hoping that the offspring will pass on more genetics. And it's interesting because you look at it, and a girl will look for a guy who will, and if you just don't want to deal with the 2019 situation, let's just go back 100,000 years ago when we didn't have social constructs, and we didn't have made up things that we have, like government or money or religion or whatever that nonsense was that we have. Whoa, we are gonna get in trouble for that one. Sorry, I didn't mean to use the word nonsense. But it's like so you were looking for a guy who could pass down a large frame to an offspring, because you don't want to be a small person. I mean, you won't survive physically. But you also don't want to be as too big, because then you won't be able to run. And it's like, those are certain things that genetics and just evolution has forced humans to go through. But if you just have that base, and then you have everything else, like it's a hard analogy to come up with, but it would be like I guess the best analogy I can come up with is being like a student in school. It's like, what do you actually need to learn? You need a professor who, hopefully in the best world and in the ideal world, is knowledgeable up to the point of mastering a topic, which we all know that's not true, but that would be the ideal world. So you just need a master of, I say students, I meant a master of their craft, a master of their field of study. And then once you have that, you need a student, obviously, and then that's pretty much all you need. And then you need certain techniques to be able to study and learn. But then after that, it's like, how much do you actually need? Do you need to have 30 more kids? Do you need to have chalkboards and overhead lights and fans on, and do you need to have a pencil sharpener? Do you, like, all these extra, it's kind of a rough analogy, but you don't need all these extra things, because what you actually only need is a professor who's educated in a field of study. And then they share information, and hopefully, this is where the school system has failed. Hopefully you are interested in the topic, where you're actually going to look at the situation and be like, oh, there's more reward there than the time I'm going to have to put in, because I enjoy the topic. And then you learn the topic. But that's like a plant, right? That's like every other organism in the world. They have that. They don't have all the extra bullshit. They don't have the cars. They don't have the skyscrapers. They don't have the gas flying in and out of our buttholes in our mouths. They don't have the social media to gossip on. They don't have the televisions. They don't have the media. They don't have all these social ways that we've developed. They don't have all these bullshit protests and all these bullshit rallies. And it's like, all they have is just the basic needs. And there's something beautiful about that. And that's why I think plants they're just so attracted. They just attract people because of that, right, man? I mean, it's like, it sounds so hippie-ish, but they do, man. They make you feel like life is easier, life is slower, and it's because, life is, as long as you get those three things covered. Now, that's the hard part, obtaining those three things consistently. But once you have that, you should be good, right? You should be fine. I mean, you should be absolutely fine. I was talking to a friend about this, and I was telling her, like, as I was growing up, I grew up around many different ethnic groups. The one thing I always noticed about the African American people I knew, whether it was just driving through our neighborhood on Sunday, or whether it was being invited to one of their cookouts, or going to like a pond and just seeing a family of African Americans just rejoicing time with each other. And I don't know if it's where I live, or I don't know what it is, but there was something just so beautiful about that. There was no, I mean, I'm sure there is, but they just got together and they hung out, and there was like unspoken language just wasn't that deep. Like, there wasn't like passive aggressiveness like I see with a lot of white families. Everybody was just there hanging out, cooking hot dogs and hanging out, drinking beer, and just a good time. And it was like an extended family. But there's just so much nonsense that goes on, at least with the people I know, but more than that, just with the world in itself. It's just so much bullshit. It's like, you say this, I hate that, I hate you, why'd you say that? And it's just crazy. That's why I love having these plants here, and like this brain, because this brain is so complex. But Jesus, if it wasn't for food or water, the brain would shut off. But if it wasn't for Donald Trump, or if it wasn't for the world overheating, the brain would keep functioning. You know, it's like, what is actually important? I love plants, man. I always have. And I think that's why, and I guess to put the bow on the gift, that's why my grandmother had, um, that's why my grandmother had the plants, because it wasn't about the always eating, because there was plenty of that. It was about the ability to just look at them and have your heart rate just calm down, just relax, bring you back to reality. Like we humans have created a second world that is just made up in our heads, just completely made up in our heads. But the reality of it is when you walk in a park and you feel different, like you just feel calmer. You know, that's the world that we live in. Not this fucking phone signaling and. I've been having this recurring thought in my head lately, and I've been waking up. I see, you see all these, especially now with all the like the Hong Kong protests going on. I think I've spoken about that before, and I'm sure you guys are aware of it. And it's all over money, right? The stock market has so much control on people. There's so much control on people. It's the cause for the drug trade. It's the cause for murder in a lot of cases. It's the cause for greed. It's the cause for destruction. It's the cause for so many things. But it's also the cause of a lot of good. And I've been having this thought, like, what if we all went to bed one night? We all went to bed. It's Friday night. Half the country got their paycheck. The other half of the country just invested, or a few 100,000 people, and might have put a little bit of money into a business, invested it. I don't know, some 18-year-old kids going to bed, buying the first house, or buying the first car. Some panhandlers or some homeless person just made $5. Somebody just got taxed really hard, or somebody didn't pay their taxes and now they're going to jail. This is a crazy thought, but what if we just all woke up tomorrow and boom, we just collectively did not value money anymore as a main trade of ideas and products and technology. And I don't mean money as like the definition. I don't even know what the definition of money is, man. Define money. Dude, I'm tired, man. I don't know why, man. Sorry about that. So right here it says a current medium of exchange in the form of coins, coins, and banknotes collectively. So it's current medium of exchange, right? That's the way that we do it today. That's how we exchange ideas, and that's how we communicate, or that's how we get things from other people. That's how we bargain. But what if we just woke up one day and we just completely just didn't care about money anymore? I mean, that it's a weird concept to think about, but the homeless person would finally feel equal. I mean, not at first. But eventually, I think things would play out. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I just think it's an interesting thought. Like, the homeless person might feel more equal and like part of society again. The really rich people will be angry, but you're exposing greed. Something else would have to take its place. But if we just all woke up and was like, money's cool, but dude, I haven't had a real laugh with my family for a long time. I haven't done a real laugh. I haven't had a real laugh with my family in such a long fucking time. Humility might increase. Instead of measuring success as dollar signs, we could actually start measuring success as a sign or a representation of happiness. Like, instead of having $2, you had 2 levels of happiness. The world might become better. It might hit the shithole and fall apart, but then it might build us up back up again in a better place. But then again, the world's not supposed to be a good place. You don't like the way the world works. I mean, it's impossible, right? It's impossible for the world to just be a good, non-chaotic, peaceful, loving, kissing, hugging, everybody rejoice with each other place. It's just not possible. It's not set up to be that way. It never was set up to be that way. Death is upon us. We all will pass away. We all will die. We may all die. A lot of us are going to die a tragic death. Some of us are going to, die a peaceful death. But we're all going to pass away, right? And you can't argue that. That's just going to happen. That's part of being born. And so if that's the result of it, how can you live your whole life truly being fulfilled with anything you do if death is right there? And that's, you hear that a lot from like nihilistic people. It's like, hey man, who cares what you do? Nothing matters. You're gonna die anyway. It's like, okay, that's true, right? That's true up to a point. And I get it because I used to think that way, but it's not though. Because the same way that I can pinch my arm and I can feel pain. I mean, my pain receptors are shooting into my brain. The same level of pain that I feel there would be the same level of pain if I found out my girlfriend was having an affair, or I found out that my dad is leaving my mom. That pain is still there. So even though I'm going to die eventually, the death is just erased. I'm not even worried about that anymore. I'm so worried about the pain I'm going through. And that's a feeling, right? That's a real feeling, and you can't ignore that. And what happens when you ignore that? Depression, anxiety. People snap. People snap when they ignore feelings, like mental feelings. They snap because you're supposed to. You're not supposed to be happy. You're not supposed to be happy all the time. You're not supposed to be joyful. You're supposed to be human. And part of being human is recognizing those triggers and recognizing those fears and anxiety triggers and recognizing that pain that's deep down inside of your body that hurts, that tears you apart. And don't even become peace with it. That's not even the goal. The goal is just to recognize that it's there, just like a scar that's left on your body after you hurt yourself. That scar is forever remembered, and you're like, when you look at it, you're like, oh, I need to be more careful. I need to be more careful with what I do when I work out. I need to be more careful what I do when I go mountain climbing. That scar is there. It's a tactic designed saying, don't do that, whatever that was. Do it again at your own risk, but be more careful. Be more aware of where you are with your body and the environment. But the same thing with pain mentally and disturbances mentally and overjoyful and getting too happy all the time. Because if you're too happy all the time, it's a steep, steep roller coaster. You're going to drop eventually. Having moments of your life that completely knocked you on your fucking face and ripped you apart, those are the moments in your life that you cannot ignore. And it's so painful, man. It's so painful. You know what makes it really hard is, unlike breaking your leg, you can't avoid that. You don't do something going into it with hoping or even possibly thinking you might break your leg. If you break your leg, it happens. It's a shock to you. But you do that. Like, if you get hurt mentally, if you get hurt by somebody or by something, it crushes you. But then you're aware of the situation and you can control that. So then you become so scared to just do anything because you've been hurt by something. And it's like, you got to pay attention to that stuff. You can't ignore that. It will, that's how fears are developed. I've read a really interesting part of my book, How the Mind Works by Steven Pinker. He's like, all these phobias we have, some of them are just not real phobias and just completely made up, but some of them are actually real, like the fear of snakes, the fear of spiders. And he brought up a really interesting point. They're innate fears. There's a study by primatologist and a psychologist. I forget the name of him. It wasn't the really famous one. Jane Austen. That's an author. Female primatologist. Yeah, Jane Goodall. Jane Foster. Oh my God, why isn't she just not the first one? Diane Fossey? No. Oh, Jane Goodall. Thank you. That was the one. Um, it wasn't her, but it was a psychologist and a primatologist, and they showed a video to a chimpanzee of a chimpanzee seeing a snake, and the video chimpanzee was scared, and then the other chimpanzee was scared, and it shows that these are innate, deep wiring fears that we have of certain animals. It's like these fears are wired into us, and this is my point. The only way you can get over the fear of snakes, and spiders, is to slowly have it spoon fed to you. And Mr. Pinker brings up a really good point. With these fears are most exacerbated. I don't know what that word is, but the most emphasized in environments where these animals don't really exist too much, like the fear of snakes. City dwellers have the biggest fear of snakes. People who just live in big cities like Manhattan, Chicago. It's like these people have the biggest fears of snakes because from birth they have a fear of them. But if you never look at the fear, I would never say conquer it, but if you don't recognize it and you don't try to take baby steps consciously and subconsciously to, like I said, not get over it, but at least to live a life where you don't have to hide inside all day because you might walk outside and see a garden snake, you have to live a normal life. You have to live a normal life. You can't let anything keep you in a pigeonhole. It's so hard to I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know how to work with it, but I do know just from reading my book that you have to have it spoon-fed to you, but subconsciously, not consciously. You would never go out looking for snakes if you have a fear of snakes, but if you go out living a daily life and you run into a snake, it's going to scare the living shit out of you, but the next time you run into another one, it's not going to scare you as bad, and then that just that keeps on stacking on top of each other. It's an exponential growth. And nobody's never going to not fully be 100% cleared from snakes, right? You hear a rattle, it scares the shit out of you, right? You don't hear a rattle and you go looking for it. I mean, some people do, like those fucking assholes in, I think, India, where they microdose cobra venom to become anti-resistant to cobras. Those people do exist. But that's with anything, right? That's with any type of fear. So every time something comes up and it hurts like a motherfucker, you have to understand that you can't think it's going to get better. Because in that moment, it's not, right? It's not going to get better. It's completely ruined. Nothing's going to get better. And that's okay. You're allowed to have that feeling. But don't go away in hiding for too long. And this is a really important part too. It's like if you know somebody who's been going through something, you got to give them the space, but at the same time, you can't let them just hide themselves too long in a cave, because then it becomes a fear of everything. It's like I have the fear of girls, I have the fear of going out, possibly running into girls. I have a fear of cars because cars mean going out, and going out means seeing girls. And you see how it stacks. You have to get on with your daily routine. You have to do things that can distract you, do things that make you feel fulfilled. And that's how you work with these things. That's how you work with the fears. And depression is a lot of things. But a lot of it is just you're stuck in this dreaded cycle of just extreme sadness. And then gone. Then it's not extreme anything anymore. It's when you're happy, you're dull. When you're sad, it's dull. You don't get too angry. When terrible, tragic tragedies happen, you don't get too sad. When the best things happen, you don't get too happy. You just become down, all day. That's the worst levels of depression. At least if you can get really fucking angry, if you can get really pissed off, then you have the ability to get really happy because you just showed a great deal of emotion for a serious thing. Anger. And I think a big issue of it is just so much nonsense thrown around in the world. I really do. I think there's this idea that you're supposed to be happy. There's this idea that you have to believe in yourself. But let's think about realistically. Like, even though that's true, right? You should be able to believe in yourself. But let's not like that saying that to somebody who has no self-esteem is like dumping my water bottle into the ocean. Like, you're not making any progress. You're not making any progress. You have to love yourself, right? I truly believe in that. But you have to deconstruct everything. You got to work backwards. So why are you there? Why is it so bleak around you? Why is it everywhere you look there's danger? Why is anxiety there in every aspect of your life? Do you really have anxiety to everything? Now, do you really think you should be taking Xanax 3 times a day and you should be taking that medicine, this medicine, and this medicine? And then you're creating a little souffle or soup of chemicals in your brain because you have anxiety? You're going to start developing anxiety when you don't have anxiety because you think you need to have anxiety. It's a very dangerous path. And how much of it can just be not cured, but at least worked on, like when you do something that's purposeful. I mean, you wake up. I have a dog named Riley. Sweetest dog I've ever had in my entire life. First dog in my entire life that's mine. Not my family's. It's my girlfriend's and I's dog. It's actually her dog. She signed off on the paper. We rescued her from a shelter. And the connection with her and I is so unique, you know. But I love watching her. She just, I don't know. So when we got her, we we woke up and Taylor, she really wanted a dog, right? That's my girlfriend. She really wanted a dog. And for the longest time, I was like, I don't know if it's a good idea. But I was just saying that out of fear. And I guess because I know I couldn't take a dog at the time, take care of a dog. It just wasn't lined up for me. I was never home working at a restaurant. I just couldn't take care of a dog. So I put that on her, but she could take care of a dog. And then so one day I woke up, and after weeks before that, I was like, hey, I completely support your decision on getting a dog. So we woke up, and she tells me, I still don't know this day if she like manipulated me into doing this, but she's like, hey, let's just go look at dogs. And I think we were planning this for like a week. Like, we were gonna get up there Friday, or I was gonna get up there Friday morning, and Friday I was gonna get there Friday night, and then Saturday we're gonna look for dogs. So we wake up, and she goes to this place where there's a dog there on the internet. We were in Roanoke, SPCA. So a shelter in Roanoke, Virginia, which is kind of a mountain city. It's a city right along the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. Not that that matters. And we get in there, and she says, hey, we're looking for, she didn't ask for that specific kind of dog because she just wanted a dog. And before that, I took her to a rescue center, and she just completely fell in love with the idea of rescuing dogs. Which I am a big supporter, and I do think it's really important to do that. I think there's a lot of homes out there that can be filled with a beautiful, beautiful creature. And we go out, and we start looking, and they say, well, we have this one dog. And she's like, you guys only have one dog? And they had one dog left because all the other dogs were in the process of getting their shots done, or they just didn't have too many dogs. It wasn't like DC or Baltimore where there's just like homeless, like there's dogs everywhere all the time. But this was Roanoke, so there wasn't that many to choose from. And they say her name's Riley, and Taylor looks at me. She's like, "That's the dog I've been looking at." And I'm like, "Uh oh," because now my mind went from, "Oh, we're just gonna be looking at dogs all day." Then we're gonna go. Sorry about that, guys. One second, I gotta take care of this message. Kind of important message. People always texting me, man. and we're looking at dogs, and I see this one dog, and I love her. They're like dragging her in because she doesn't want to walk. She's scared, shitless out of her mind of everything. And you gotta imagine. I mean, I couldn't imagine what a shelter's like. People say they're good, but some of them are just not. So we get this dog. She's like hiding underneath the bench, and Taylor's like, "I want him." She's already saying that. She's like, "I want the dog. I want the dog." And it's cool because at the time I was filming a lot for my YouTube channel. So what you guys are watching right now on YouTube. So I got it all in video of us getting the dog and her eating, and signing the papers to get the dog. And we put her in the car, and we literally had to all pick her up and drag her, and then we put her in the car, and she's just there. And she's looking at us, and I'm looking at Taylor, and we just were on a high because we just got a dog, not super cheap, just enough to basically give enough back to the SPCA where they can stay open. We got a collar, and we have a dog, and like I look at her, I'm like, oh shit, what do we do now? Like, what are we doing? And Taylor just she never had fear, first of all. I was the most fearful one. And it wasn't because of the dog, but it was because of Taylor, and I didn't want Taylor to be hurt, and I didn't want the Taylor. I don't know. I think the naivety was good, but I think I was just because I've always had rescue dogs, and I had a rescue dog who was not a bad dog, but just more aggressive, and you just don't know. Like, you never, and still to this day, we don't fully know everything that she does. But so we get this dog and we go to PetSmart. Taylor runs into PetSmart. She comes out with a leash. And meanwhile, I'm trying to, hang out with the dog, and she's just so skittish, so scared. We get back to the place, and later that evening we try to feed her, and she just won't eat. She won't drink her water. She won't move. She just hides in the corner looking at us like we're crazy. So I look up, there's something called the magic 3-step rule. Like the set of threes. It's like 3 days your dog is going to start walking towards you. 3 weeks your dog's going to start interacting with you more, following you. And after 3 months your dog should be meeting you at the door when you come in from work or wherever you are. Whatever you're doing during your beautiful days. And I stay there, and by Sunday evening, it's only been 48 hours, but I'm getting ready to go back to my house, and I got to go to school the next day. And I look at her, and I'm like, she really hasn't eaten. I don't think she ate at all yet. So it's been 36 hours. She hasn't eaten. I'm like, she's got to eat, man. She's got to eat. And I wanted to build a connection with her, at least some form of connection. So when I saw her again, she would at least remember me for something, for me doing something for her. So I try to feed her. She doesn't eat her food. I'm trying to feed it out of my hands. But she won't eat it, which I wasn't mad about. I kind of expected that. But I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I followed that out with attempting to feed her peanut butter. So I grabbed a peanut butter, I put it on a spoon, and she started eating it. And it was so beautiful to watch her eat the food because it was a trust thing. She started drinking her water. And then later that night, Taylor walked outside with me. The dog on the leash, and the dog looked at me as I left, and there was just something about that. When I came back home, I came back 2 weeks later, and she didn't really recognize me. She didn't really see me. She didn't really have time for me. A lot closer to Taylor. But then as the weeks went on, and I slowly started building more of a connection with her, and it was just so beautiful to see, to have a connection with something that you raised, something that you took care of. So the first time I really ever felt a connection to something. And it gave me a beautiful feeling inside. And so this is the first dog that I can truly say that I helped grow. And I grew this dog, and I took care of this dog, and I fed the dog. But there's something about that, right? There's something about seeing a dog that's just so beautiful. And it's I think the most beautiful thing about that is not that the connection is so strong with the dog, but the dog has they've just goals, man. The goals are so black and white, cleared out, hard, drawn out lines of what I'm going to do today. Get up. My dog doesn't chase balls, but catch sticks or anything. But my dog has a goal, and the goal is to wake up every morning and greet us when we wake up. She doesn't sleep with us. She keeps her distance, but she sleeps downstairs on the couch, and I'm usually the first one up, and once my foot hits the ground, she's running upstairs, and she's so excited to see us. And you see these goals, and it's like, I can't put a value on them. She can't really put a value on it. She doesn't know why she's so extremely excited. But she has this goal to say hi to us. She says hi to us, and she's fulfilled. That's so, I don't know, that's just so beautiful. It's like, that's what it's about, right? Just chasing things and keeping like a simple goal in mind and just achieving it, And that's what you watch. And there's nothing greater than that. That's why I'm big into like micro goals during the day, like little things to accomplish throughout your day. Not like huge goals, and huge goals are unpredictable, but they can come. But like having little tiny ideas and achieving those every day, that's what I think is most important. Just like a dog chasing a bone and eating food and saying hi to us. It's not a huge goal, but they're little goals, and fulfillment is the ultimate goal, right? Even your biggest goals. The reason why they're so big is because you think that they will fulfill you the most. Right? But then actually what happens is you achieving the smaller ones, that allows you to feel fulfillment. That allows you to feel that. Because if you just skipped right ahead to your big goal and you fulfilled it, you wouldn't feel like you did anything. Because you'd feel like you not cheated, but you just took the short way, and there was no struggle. And the struggle is what ultimately makes you feel really satisfied about your life. I'm gonna have guests on here. I keep hoping that this will be my last episode where it's just me by myself. I do like doing these a lot, and I will continue to do them. But I will have guests on. I have a new mic actually coming in today. So hopefully that mic comes in soon. And then I want to start small. I'm going to start because, look, I stood it in my house. So it's like if you come over, I want you to feel comfortable in my house. My parents are here. So it's like I want it to be like people I know personally. And the whole idea is to just have a place where you can just sit down and talk. And like, oh, there's a camera, there's a microphone, but you're not even aware of that. Like, that's the ultimate goal. And I think I'm going to do something that I don't think a lot of people do, at least for podcast people, because I think a lot of people who run podcasts are young or older people. I really want to get my parents on here. I think it's super interesting to see a child talk to the parents as they're growing older, as they're getting older. I would love to talk because I don't know a lot about my family history, and a lot of things they say I believe to be true, but they could be false. And also, it would really help me grow a stronger relationship with my family. Not that there's a bad relationship, but I just think it can always get better. And it's like, why not try? If it can get better, I think you should just do it. So my goal is to hopefully have that mic. It should be in here, set up by the end of today. Once that happens, I'm going to be doing podcasts with 2 people. I'm going to get friends in here. I'm going to get people that I personally know. I'm just going to talk, just hang out, cut the shit. Something that I think will be really interesting. So once I get back into school, I'm going to have like nights where I don't have to do anything the next day. So I might like do some like hangout podcast where I just have like a friend over. We just shoot the shit, talk, and maybe have a glass of wine or something, and just talk about our childhood and talk about the future and talk about anything and everything, like that post gym conversations that you have that are like you know what I mean, like after you get out of the gym and you cut the shit, the bar talk. I think that stuff is the most truthful stuff, and I think that's the stuff that people can relate to the most. But yeah, guys, this weather has just got me. I feel good. I like this weather a lot. Like, I like the rainy, colder weather. I do love summer. I love super hot days too. But situationally, I got to be like in a certain place where it's like acceptable for it to be really hot, so I can like go swim, like in the ocean or something. But this weather is very humbling, man. It's just so relaxing, dude. It's so relaxing. You just feel like my heart rate feels slower, and I just feel better. But at the same time, it is a little bit like the clouds are lower, and it does feel a little bit more dull outside. But people just seem less on edge. Like the sun is like cocaine. It's like vitamin D, but like vitamin cocaine. Like people just get at it, man. People are just like fucking yelling at each other there, hitting people there, yelling at people there, and it's like people are just so aggressive when it's super hot outside. But like this weather just calms people down. It like puts the assholes, like it unplugs their freaking microphone from the speaker. Just calms the world down. Like the world feels slower, doesn't it, in this weather? I mean, at least to me, it just feels easier to handle. It's crazy how the weather can affect the way you feel so much. Like, and like I never made this correlation, but I think it's real. I don't know how much it is real. I'm not a scientist, but I have like this weird idea, which hopefully somebody can help me out with, so I don't sound super duper ignorant. I have this idea that depending on the time of the year it is, especially if it's like winter or summer or whatever time of the year it is, it becomes easier and harder to lose weight and gain weight and maintain weight at certain times of the year. And like I say this because when it's like really, really cold outside, you for many reasons, especially if you live on the East Coast, you don't have to northern East Coast, you don't have to worry about looking good with the shirt off, right? Because you're always gonna wear extra layers, which is gonna deceive what your body actually looks like. Also, along with the extra layers, it's going to be cold, so people are going to be wearing longer sleeves. But yeah, a lot of people aren't going to be going to the beach. It's really cold outside. You can get by with looking a certain way. And it's going to snow, and you want to be warm during the snow, so you don't have to be in super good shape all the time. But on top of that, our bodies slow down too, and our bodies also naturally want to eat more. Because when it gets cold outside, you want to survive through the winter. That's very drilled into our DNA, especially depending on the background of culture you are, like your ethnic, like where did your ancestors come from? That also affects it too. So it's like it's so much easier to retain body fat, and I think the overall metabolism slows down when it gets colder outside. It's just crazy to think that the weather out there, like as much as advanced as our technology is, we still don't have full control of the way our body interacts within the rest of the world. So like it's so much harder for me to, because when it's summertime, like pre-summer, like I have a goal. I want to look good with my shirt off and I want to feel good. But then in the wintertime, I don't care, man. Like, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but I think it is. It has to be true, right? Maybe. I'm not too sure. I'm not too positive. But I do know one thing. I do know I'm gonna end this podcast right here. It's probably one of our shorter podcasts, but that's absolutely fine. I don't have I want them to be like 45 minutes to an hour and a half long, depending on whatever I have to talk about that day. I feel like I had a lot to talk about when I came in here, but now my brain is just slowly running out of gas. So I don't want to rant. I don't want to do that to you guys. I want some structure, kind of. I did water my plants, so that's really exciting. And right here, you guys can't see on audio, but I have like a bunch of these like long thorns on one of my cylinder cacti, and the water is just resting inside of it. It's so crazy to see. I might be able to show it for video, but no, I won't be able to show. My shoulders are so sore, dude. Jesus Christ. I've been having such good workouts lately, which means I've been pushing a lot of weight, which means my arms are just getting so fucking tight. Hurting, man, but this cactus just like holding this water. Like water is when when you blow up like a bubble of soap or whatever, it like becomes hollow in the middle. But like water does the same thing, which is, I think there might be water in there. But it's like a casting. It's like a mold of a water droplet. It's just so trippy to look at. The world is crazy. Life is crazy. Our brains are crazy. Guys, this was episode 11 of the Michael Lab Show. If you enjoyed it, please leave it a like, comment, subscribe, share the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, please like on YouTube. Please comment on YouTube. Please follow on Instagram. The links are in the description box below. If you guys are watching this on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, please leave it a rating. That helps so much. If not, just listen to it. Enjoy it. Please share with friends. and family. I'm going to go ahead and end this podcast right here. You guys, episode 11 is now done. I'll catch you guys in episode 12, maybe with a guest, but definitely in the near future. Before episode 15, I will most likely have guests on. Thank you guys so much. Have a great, great evening and a great week.